Speaking of Joe Biden's political priorities, it is extremely odd to hear Democrats on the one hand say that there is no greater priority in the world than making sure Trump doesn't return to power. If he returns to power, he's going to implement a white supremacist dictatorship. He's going to end all American democracy. He's going to be a Hitler figure. You would think anyone who really believes that would be willing to do anything and everything to make sure they win this 2024 election. Now, they are willing to do a lot of things. They're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into a preposterous candidate called Nikki Haley. They are trying to strike Trump from the ballot to prevent people from voting for him. They're trying to imprison Trump, all the things we've gone through. But one of the things that is really endangering Joe Biden's political prospects is the fact that huge numbers of people in his own party on whom he is relying, not only to be willing to vote for him, but to get up and be passionate and go to the polls and vote for him, without whom he has no chance for re-election, aren't just opposed to his policy of supporting Israel, but are so vehemently opposed to it that they are saying over and over now that they will not vote for Joe Biden because they believe that what he's doing in Gaza and in Israel by supporting Israel and arming and funding it constitutes genocide. And once you reach that conclusion, it is very difficult to say, well, I believe Biden is guilty of genocide, but I'm still going to vote for him on the lesser of two evils.
Now, if you listen to Sam Cedar, the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, or anybody in the NATO left, they have this ability to say, this is a genocide, but then to go on and say, I'm going to support them. Now you see why AOC in the professional managerial class, we see that the professional managerial class use the same sort of phrasing, how you have to disconnect from your vote. They want you to do that too. They want you to become just as depraved as they are. I say vote your conscience. Vote third party and vote your conscience. Have a clear conscience. Let's go.
Rationale, what is actually the lesser evil once you accuse somebody of genocide? And you could see this coming from a mile away. You've had Arab and Muslim voters in key swing states like Michigan saying now for months, we are not voting for Joe Biden. And you've had left-wing voters and young voters who are horrified by Biden's steadfast support for Israel who are saying the same thing. And I think there was a time for a month or so when the Biden White House did not take seriously the claim that these voters wouldn't snap into line, because understandably, it's true that left-wing voters in the United States have a very strong tendency to snap into line and do what they're told and go vote for the Democrats when they're told to, no matter how angry they are along the way. But this seems to be reaching a point of kind of sustained rate, of the kind of anger that Democrats had to Lyndon Johnson during the Vietnam War that forced Lyndon Johnson not to seek re-election. It really is starting to reach that level of sustained protest. Everywhere Democratic Party office holders go, they're interrupted by protesters, angry protesters, accusing them of genocide. Leave aside for the moment whatever your views are on the war and whether you support Biden's arming and financing of Israel. I'm just saying politically, this has become a serious risk. Here from the Wall Street Journal today, the headline, Biden aides fret that support for Israel will hurt his re-election prospects. The president is seeing routine pro-Palestinian protests at his campaign event. Quote, some of President Biden's senior aides are becoming increasingly worried that his support for Israel's war in Gaza risks damaging his re-election prospects amid cratering support from young voters. Biden advisors are divided on the seriousness of the political threat. Some see a real risk that disillusioned young voters will stay home because of the Israel issue and because of other concerns about the president. Other aides are confident that most of those voters will end up giving priority to other issues above Israel and that they will vote for Biden rather than risk another Trump administration. Pro-Palestinian protests aimed at the president are getting increasingly loud activists opposing Israel's military offensive in Gaza interrupted Biden during a rally Wednesday with auto workers a day after they heckled him at a campaign speech, back-to-back outbursts that represent the loudest protest movement Biden has faced since taking office. Quote, I don't think there's going to be anywhere that Biden goes during this campaign where he won't be disrupted or where there won't be dissent, said Sandro Tamari, the executive director of the Abala Justice Project, a U.S.-based organization that advocates for Palestinian rights and has participated in some of the protests. Now,
let me pause there. It's not looking good for Joe Biden. And if Joe Biden is going to support a genocide, we have to ask ourselves, for those who are against genocide, how do you hold him accountable for those who would never vote for him? And how do you hold him accountable for those who would vote for him or who have in the past vote for him? But this video talks about him being interrupted 13 times. And then it also talks about issues with youth and progressives. So let's watch this video and then we'll comment on the other side.
Something we saw yesterday when Joe Biden was there the first time in this campaign, Betsy, that he was side by side with the vice president and each of their spouses. They were focused on reproductive rights. Giant words said "Restore Roe" over their shoulders. But frankly, for anybody watching, myself included, he was interrupted more than 13 times by protesters there. And it did sort of reveal within the Democratic Party, frankly, some of the real challenges that Joe Biden faces right now, certainly among the young voters, among progressives as well. 13 times he was interrupted, just another interruption that took place during his event with the UAW today.
Yeah, it's a real sense of source of softness within his Democratic activist base. Of course, the vice president has worked overtime to try to shore up that wing of the party, the more progressive wing that the president just hasn't always had on lock for much of his career. But the fact that he can barely do an event that's open to the public without getting heckled or, addressed, shall we say, on this issue. One thing that just highlights is how unpredictable these election cycles can be. It takes one day of violence followed by a war breaking out that nobody in the U.S. would have predicted, certainly not in the U.S. intelligence community. And it dramatically, or thus far appears to dramatically be shaking some of the political dynamics in ways people hadn't expected. It's a long time till November, and that's part of the reason that these cycles are always just weirder than you might think.
And they keep saying that. It's a long time to November. To me, if I was a Democratic voter, that would be so insulting to me that just on that I would not come out and vote because you just saying you just gonna do what the fuck you want to do and not listen to me. That's what they're basically saying, that just let them blow off a little steam. They'll be back. That's essentially what they're saying about you, and are you gonna fall in line?
So the Democratic Party relies a lot on Michigan's Muslim American population, which helped Biden win the state in 2020. This days, President Biden can't give a speech without being interrupted by pro-Palestinian protesters because of his support for Israel in the Israel-Hamas war. Watch what happened just earlier today when he was addressing UAW members.
No matter what that was, it should be.
So in 2020, Biden won Michigan by less than 200,000 votes, fewer than 200,000 votes, and there are more than 200,000 Muslim American voters in Michigan.
200,000 votes. You can see it there. Biden has 2,804,000. Trump has 2,649,000. So if there's more Muslim voters than there is the margin, you see how that becomes problematic when a campaign called Abandon Biden is created. But let's continue.
How worried are you that President Biden's support for Israel in the war against Hamas might doom the president in Michigan?
So Jake, you know that I've always told everybody Michigan is a competitive state. It is never one that you can take for granted, and it's a purple state. There are a lot of very strong feelings on this issue. But remember, we're talking about the opponent of President Biden as being someone who wants to ban Muslims. You've got to remind people of that. This is an issue that is a lot of people on both sides have had family members that have been held hostage on the Gaza side. Can I tell you how many of my constituents have had family members that have been killed, have no food, no water, the casework that I'm doing? But today I witnessed the president have a very respectful conversation with some UAW members who raised it. I know he knows how to talk to people. It's an issue we're going to have to talk about and deal with. But again, it's going to be a contrast, and we need to remind people of the facts and who we've got to address this issue in the Mideast. It's an issue that's a big issue in many places, but I would not put our foreign affairs in the hands of Donald Trump ever.
You see how it's problematic. I'm sorry. The setup of the Biden administration is problematic. The problem is you're going out and saying, oh, let's understand and compassion. And yeah, this is hard and this is complicated, as you are sending them weapons and money behind Congress's back. Like those two things, do you think the Muslim and Arab populations and communities around the country, and specifically in Michigan, do you think they don't hear this? They don't have news reports in Dearborn? They don't have news reports? That's what's so bizarre. But this is also a reason you're starting to hear more and more about Biden is mad at Netanyahu, because they need to create this narrative that he's mad at what's happening. As if, I just don't understand how they think that narrative is going to stick when he supports them at the same time. It's such a bizarre dynamic. In order to get the people you need, you have to stop doing the things you're doing to show support for Israel, which you're not going to stop doing. It's a terrible situation, and this is the reason why she was so flustered. She had nothing but to say the other guy's worse, because there's no answer. They're not going to change their policy. Now, here's another one. Biden heckled multiple times in his speech, and they don't show the heckling, but they actually, I don't know if they do. But let's play this. This is, I think this is the Faulkner Report or Faulkner Focus, whatever the name of her show is. And let's listen to what she says. She has a Dem and GOP strategist, I believe, on.
President Biden was heckled more than a dozen times in speeches this week. Let's watch. An op-ed calling this a warning sign for his re-election bid. Quote, while the president's surrogates can try to chalk up these incidents as unrepresentative of the Democratic base, the heckler's dissatisfaction with the president is far more reflective of his voters than he would care to admit. Elections are won on the margins, and if the candidate's support among his own base begins to slip only slightly, it could prove fatal in a general election. Let's go to a former surrogate now, Kevin Walling. Your take.
Yeah, Harris, I mean, I think, and I think Matt would probably agree with me, 2024 is going to be a base election. This isn't going to be a persuasion election, right? You have a few folks in the middle that are going to decide between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but both parties have got to run up their margins. And a key constituent of the Democratic Party is young people. And we're seeing time and time again, the young people feel really strongly about what they're seeing out of the Middle East.
But this issue about the Middle East, though, isn't just among the young. We are seeing that play out in pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel and all sorts of things across the country on college universities. But it's not only the young.
No, it's a good point. Not just the young, right? We're seeing it actually in the state of Michigan, which is going to be a key battleground state, Harris, with the Arab American community, the Muslim American community, which is a key base of support also for the president. And that's, to your point, all ages. So, we've got 10 months to adjudicate this election. I think a lot of those folks are going to come back home to the president, especially when they see, Donald Trump campaigning again on the Muslim ban and martial law in our cities that he's putting forward. So hopefully those folks will come home to us, and we'll make a concerted effort to bring them home.
Not looking good. Now, again, all they have is Trump bad, and they're going to come back home. So, again, if I was a protester, you know how upset, how disrespectful that is? You out here protesting, yelling, making signs every day, walking for miles, for hours. And they just think you're just doing this for show. Like it's a fad. Like, oh, you're just gonna like you're one of them. You're just virtue signaling, and you're gonna come back home. And I'm saying I don't see that. And I agree with Glenn Greenwald, what he was saying in his video. This seems different. When we get to the level of protest where people are being protested, and it's not just people, the president is going and being protested. And if he's going to be campaigning, he's leaving himself wide open, because when you campaign, you have to be open to the public. So there's no way of keeping this people out. And if he's doing a larger event, the threshold to be allowed in is even lower. Like when you're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So you're not going to avoid this. Listen to the panic here. For some reason, she always seems kind of panicked. Like she just came from running up the stairs or something like that. But she's very panicked in this video. Let's watch.
But I've heard interviews with Muslim American voters in Michigan. These are smart people. They're not saying they're going to vote for Trump. They say they're not going to vote.
I think that we have to have, look, people are concerned, they're worried. I talk to them every single day. But I'm also beginning to have people say who 2 months ago were very angry, and I'm like, you'd rather have Donald Trump? And today they're saying he would really hurt this country. The damage he could do was bad. I think we've got to address this issue. Policymakers, all of us have a responsibility to get this issue addressed, to take care of the people of Palestine. We need a two-state solution. I think that what Netanyahu is saying about not having a two-state solution is something we should all pay attention to deal with this issue. I've been clear about that.
But I've heard interviews with Muslim Americans.
Now, notice how she doesn't answer the question, and she starts a sentence, and then starts a different sentence, and then starts a third sentence. I'm going to play the first several seconds first so you can hear what I mean. This is a person who's out of answers on what to do here. When you're locked in knowing my government is not going to change policy on Israel.
American voters in Michigan. These are smart people. They're not saying they're going to vote for Trump. They say they're not going to vote.
I think that we have to have, look, people are.
I think that we should have, man, look. That's 3 sentences there. That's a person who is absolutely flustered here. Now, and let me read the caption first. It says, Biden struggling to speak, hot mic moment, and Van Jones advice to Joe Biden. That's all was wrapped into this clip here. It's 2 minutes, 18 seconds. Let's watch all of it. It's from Fox News, or starting with Fox News. Let's listen.
But, during his speech, you're going to hear from the president. You're going to hear from CNN's Van Jones. You're going to also hear Democrats caught on a hot mic. Watch this.
Don't mess with the men in America unless you want to get the benefit.
What did he say?
That was interesting. So I guess that's the way it's going to be. That's going to happen constantly. Yep. They're going to have to have a lot more security laid out around the place. Oh, yeah.
If I were Biden, I would.
Did you hear that? Now, we're listening during the sound when it's just the audience sound. if you listen closely, you can hear Democrats talking about the protest they just saw Joe Biden go through, and they're saying that's going to happen all the time. So let's play it again. I rewind it, but let's listen to the background after Joe Biden stopped speaking.
That was interesting. So I guess that's the way it's going to be. That's going to happen constantly. Yep.
That's going to happen constantly. And then another person said, yup.
A lot more security laid out around the place. Oh, yeah.
If I were
Wow. They say that was interesting. And he says, that's going to happen constantly. And he goes, yup. He says the other couple of things, but that's the gist of what you hear on a hot mic. I'm gonna let it play all the way out now.
That was interesting. So I guess that's the way it's going to be. That's going to happen constantly. Yep. It's going to happen. A lot more security laid out around the place. Oh, yeah.
if I were Biden, I would stay hidden, and I'll tell you why. He doesn't inspire confidence, and he's not a great messenger for himself. There's something wrong with this campaign where we're somehow expecting Joe Biden, who frankly hid during the last campaign, to come out now and be Flash Gordon and face this his own campaign. Part of what we're looking at as Trump's strength, his resilience, is really a reflection of Biden's fragility. Republicans are not afraid of Joe Biden. They're not afraid. They don't think that by putting up somebody this damaged, frankly, this deranged, with this many deficits, is going to hurt them at all.
Okay, Carolyn, let's just take it from the top. We think the president said, don't mess with the women of America unless you want to get the benefit. That sentence, unfortunately,
yeah,
still
that was
does not make
inaudible.
sense.
I didn't understand
The Democrats caught on a hot mic, Caroline, were saying, this is the way it's going to happen constantly. They're going to have a lot more security laid down around the place because of the hecklers and protesters. Doesn't feel good for the race right now for the White House.
All of those clips demonstrate that Biden isn't winning with moderates. He's not winning with the far left flank, the rabid progressives that want us to completely withdraw support for Israel. He's not winning with the old school Democrats. He's really not winning at all, partly because he's too incoherent to really conduct himself as a president should. He's clearly mentally deteriorating to the point of no return. But he's not winning on the issues. His national pitch is not very compelling to most Americans who are simply struggling with economic hardships. And now the border crisis is flooding into their communities. So, Biden, it's just not winning.
Amazing. And the hot mic, being caught on the hot mic, saying that, like, it's an acknowledgement, your base is very upset, and instead of doing anything to placate them, you're just going to add more security. You're just going to put a barrier up. We ain't giving them anything. Just put some more fence up, put some more security up at the door. But you want to vote for them. So now you may recognize his name. What's his name again? Terrence Woodbury. Now, I've seen him personally on MSNBC several times doing segments on the Readout, to be specific. And they always bring him on to talk about what's going on, because he's a pollster, by the way. He's a Democratic pollster, by the way. So this is the Democratic pollster, Terrence Woodbury, talking about giving advice on young voters and voters of color. So let's listen. This is his company. It's called Hit Strategies. That's his company. Let's listen.
There are young voters that are not mobilized by the threat of Trump. They will only be mobilized by the reality or that their communities have improved. And look, when you look at what young people tell me they care about, things like climate change and student loans and gun control and abortion, he has done more on those issues than any president in my lifetime. I think now he has about 8 months to tell that story. And more important, not just take a victory lap and tell them, look at how much I've done for you, but look at how much we've gotten done because you voted, and remind them the power and the efficacy of that vote if we're going to expect them to do it again. There are young voters.
My bad, everybody. I didn't have it fully open. I mean, you heard it as only sound, but I didn't have it fully open just so it looks nicer. Now let's replay it. Let's replay it, and then I'll stop and start.
There are young voters that are not mobilized by the threat of Trump. They will only be mobilized by the reality or that their communities have improved. And
so what he's saying is that young voters, you're not fooling them with rhetoric. And I would hope that media spaces like RBN, like, you know, Convo Couch, all of our buddies, Jimmy Dore, and TikTok have contributed to this. This is why there's such a TikTok is in the hot seat, because of its influence and its inability to control the narrative on TikTok. And there's just young people just spitting fire on TikTok. But this is the reason why for the censorship. But you hear what he says. He says young people aren't fooled by this nonsense. Okay, they're not fooled by that. You can't. Oh, Trump bad. Yeah. Okay. It's like they only respond to tangible things. That I agree with. Now, where his job comes in is to come on and give advice to say, now this is what they need. They are influenced by tangible things. Now go in and lie to them about how you did tangible shit. That's what he goes on to say later in this video. So let's listen to the rest of it.
The reality or that their communities have improved. And look, when you look at what young people tell me they care about, things like climate change and student loans and gun control and abortion, he has done more on those issues than any president in my lifetime.
He has done more on those issues than any president in my lifetime. Understand, there's a couple of things. Understand this phrasing of using historical references to say something is this or that. This is a propaganda trick. Because if you say that anybody in my lifetime, let's think about who's been in your lifetime. Barack Obama, terrible. George Bush, both of them, terrible. W and HW, terrible. Bill Clinton, terrible. So what does it say, really, to say in my lifetime, Joe Biden has done A, B, or C when you're looking at who you're comparing it to? Give me the raw information, not in comparison to somebody else, because you can say, I can classify me giving you 2 pennies as historical if I gave you 1 penny every single year, and then 1 year I decide to give you 2 pennies, I can label that as historical. I can label that. That's the most money he's given me in my lifetime. But it's just 2 pennies. So, but just as a side note, Black people who push this nonsense, it's despicable to me. This guy, Terrence Woodbury. But to push that Joe Biden has done these things, and to use this phrasing that he has been on the right side of these topics that you list the most in your lifetime. Let's listen to him say that again.
Communities have improved. And look, when you look at what young people tell me they care about, things like climate change and student loans and gun control and abortion,
student loan, he has done more in his lifetime. I guess you can say that, but it goes to the comparison that I said. In my lifetime, yes. But when you look at the actual number of the amount he has forgiven, it is literally less than 10% of the debt. When I looked at the pie chart, when you look at a pie chart, it's like a sliver. When you look at the pie chart, it's like a sliver that he has canceled. Do I have that as a receipt somewhere? I always forget. where I put them in my bookmarks. Student loan. I actually may have a receipt for that. Student loan. Yeah, I do. So let me find that. Oh no. Let's see. I'm getting close. Do I have it? Oh, no. Okay. It's a pie chart like this that I was hoping I still had, but unfortunately I do not have it any longer. So we'll go back to what we were covering here. So I don't have the receipt to show you. So let's go back to the not mobilized by Trump and finish out this part of this segment here.
Mobilized by the threat of Trump. They will only be mobilized by the reality or that their communities have improved. And look, when you look at what young people tell me they care about, things like climate change and student loans and gun control and abortion, he has done more.
Climate change, student loan, and abortion. Oh, he's on video saying he's not really down for abortion. That's years ago. You can say that. Could that be the reason he's not really fighting for it? And 2 and 3, Democrats are the one that sat back and allowed it to be taken away. Now somehow they're going to be the fierce advocates to get it. Remember, you were the fierce advocate as it was being removed. But he's going to say he has done more. How can you say that Joe Biden has done more on that? And then you're talking about student loans. We just covered that. And what was the other couple of things? Climate change. I hope you're not referring to the IRA. The Black Agenda Report did a great write-up on this, how the IRA is actually not a climate bill, it's an anti-climate bill. The IRA, they boast about some quote-unquote climate measures. But in the same bill, there's things that go against the very climate measures, opening up more land for drilling. And it's other things in the bill, but it's essentially the way I described it when I covered it is that the IRA is essentially, it's like a sinking boat. You have a hole in your boat, you're sinking. It's you and another person. You have a bucket. You're taking the water out of the boat, dumping it back into the body of water to help save the boat. Your passenger is taking water out from the body of water, the ocean, the river, in the bucket, and helping the hole and putting it into the boat. That's what the IRA does for climate change. So to act like Joe Biden has done something on climate, don't talk about minimum wage. He has done nothing on minimum wage, has done nothing on voting rights. If that's something you are into, if you're a person into that, not particular for me, but there are some that are into that. He hasn't.
Change in student loans and gun control and abortion. He has done more on those issues than any president in my lifetime. I think now he has about 8 months to tell that story. And more important, not just take a victory lap and tell them, look at how much I've done for you, but look at how much we've gotten done because you voted, and remind them the power and the efficacy of that vote if we're going to expect them to do it again.
So this is what's so bizarre. So he's done such good things. It's so good that but somehow I haven't heard about it. Is it really that good if I haven't heard about it? You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to watch the news to know about stimulus checks coming out, because everybody in the neighborhood gonna be talking about stimulus checks. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's absurd that you're saying that we've done so much good shit, but people just don't know. Why aren't they being affected by all the good shit you're doing?